Are you ready? Yeah. Good to be with you. Have a seat. Have a seat. You're the VIPs here, not me. It's so important that you understand that's our culture. I mean, the key to success in this business is really understanding that it's the people who choose to follow you that are the VIPs. So you may be the Grand Zodiac Commander of the galaxy, whatever, rank you are, but the people in your organization are the ones that made you that. And so you always recognize them, right? So I just want to recognize you. Thank you. Now, I've been doing this business longer than most of you have been alive. And I've seen a lot of presentations. Some really, really special. A lot that were good. Some that were really, really bad. I did a few of those. I remember one of my first ones, which was done in a living room in a home in Las Vegas of a dear friend. His wife wasn't really happy about him engaging the business with me, and she was in the kitchen making noise while I was trying to do the presentation in the living room. And admittedly, the presentation was not good. I mean, it was bad. But after the people left and nobody joined, okay, she walked in and she said, "Stewart, you should choose another profession. You're not very good at this." So, I mean, I've seen great presentations, good presentations, bad presentations. I've done awful presentations myself. But what you just witnessed with Trent Tueller is one of the very best I've ever seen. Not only was it delivered really well, because Trent is just magical to watch, he's authentic. And I've thought a lot about this as we've gone through this tumultuous change over the last 10, 15 years, because you're going to look back on this when you're my age and you're going to say, wow, that first 20 years after 2000 was, what a ride. It was crazy. When I grew up, I was watching a television series called The FBI. They walked on water, you know what I mean? And now I wouldn't trust one with my wallet. So, I mean, there has been this collapse of institutional credibility. Somebody comes up and says, "I graduated with an MBA from Harvard," and you say, "Well, let me back out of this room real quickly," right? And so we realize that we can't trust institutions anymore. We can't trust the big brands anymore. We can't trust this fancy Ivy League degree anymore. What can we trust? And there was this emergent idea that we were entering the reputation economy. And then you ended up with people like the Kardashians and others who were famous for being famous. They'd actually never done anything, but they were really good at self-promotion. And so I started thinking, well, it's not really the reputation economy. Maybe it's the influencer economy. But the more I saw these influencers prostitute themselves for things they didn't even use, let alone believe in, I begin to realize that it's not the influencer economy, it's the authenticity economy. What we buy now, we buy because we trust somebody who told us something about it. And that's why Trent's statistics are so relevant to you, that it is the, quote, small influencer that has the greatest engagement. I mean, I don't know whether Joe Rogan actually drinks Athletic Greens every day, but I wouldn't bet $500 on it, okay? I just wouldn't. But he pitches it every day, and they pay him a lot to do it. But the reality of it is, when you see stories like Jim and John that you just witnessed, that is authenticity. They don't need to be Tony Robbins. They just need to be real. And if they're real, they can persuade me to do something. That's all you need to be, is real. In the coming decades, we're going to find ourselves living in a world that resembles the original Blade Runner movie. Any of you see that? I remember watching that on my motel TV right down here in the Everglades. Me and one of my colleagues had come to Miami for a investment conference. This is clear back, in the 80s when that movie came out, or shortly after. And we had one room with 2 beds, that was the day, business trip. The company wouldn't pay for 2 rooms. And so we came down there, we're both sitting on our beds watching this little screen in the TV in the motel room, watching this movie where people will do almost anything to get something that's real. They've got fake things everywhere. And the fake things, even the fake people, were beautiful, wonderful, incredible, amazing. But people didn't want the fake things. They wanted the real things. And what we're offering is the real thing. Coming from a person who actually knows that it's real because it's changed their life. So I wanted to just say that about Trent's presentation because it really hit me. It really hit me. It was exceptional. You should give him I gave him a standing ovation, but nobody else seemed to. But I'm telling you what, it's pretty special. Now, I want to give you a little framing because of some things that have happened recently. Unicity, made the decision to leave the Direct Selling Association about 20 years ago. I never felt like I was in the direct selling business. Still don't. Is Procter & Gamble in the grocery store business? Are the pharmaceutical companies, is Pfizer, are they in the drugstore business? No. We are in the product development business, and through you, we are in the healthcare intervention business. That's what we do. And so when people align themselves with these associations, there's nothing wrong with being in direct marketing. That's the way we do it, but that's not who we are. That's simply the channel we execute through, because it is the best channel to create intervention. The reason Michael Jordan didn't get more money than he got, in spite of great representation by Falk, is that Michael didn't actually intervene. He didn't need to in those days. His very presence in the campaign was an intervention. But when you're trying to get people to make lifestyle, behavioral changes, guess what you need to do? You need to intervene. There's literally billions of people, and we know this because the Ozempic company has now like 80% of Denmark's GDP, which is where it's based. It is I don't know the exact numbers, don't quote me on it, but do your own research. That company has basically made Denmark an economic powerhouse since that drug got repurposed from diabetes to weight loss. And that tells you that weight loss is on billions of people's minds. But they've struggled again and again and again to try to resolve this thing and have been unsuccessful because behavioral modification is hard. And if you don't have all kinds of reasons to do it, you will not do it. And so when someone comes along with a shot or a pill or something else, it may make you ill, it may have scary side effects, it may have even things that you don't know coming down the road at you. It's like, I so much want to lose this weight. Give me this shot, right? Now, the truth of the matter is that on average, people last about a month on that product or those kinds of products because they're hungry for real change. They don't want to be skinny fat, they want to be fit. And there's a difference between being skinny fat and being fit. What you're doing for them is very different than what that drug is doing for them. And so it's important that you absolutely embrace this idea of being an interventionist in people's lives. You're not just influencing them to try to product, you're influencing them to change their lifestyle so that they can actually live into seeing their daughters get married or their children walk across the graduation stage. It's about behavior change, and the products that we sell help you change your behavior. But without you, the behavior wouldn't change from just the product. And people have come to me recently, big players, a Wall Street firm has reached out to me and said, listen, you know what? MLM is dead. But I can tell you right now, we can put that Unicity product on the shelf and make you a multi-billionaire. I say, I'm like 70 years old. I started on Wall Street. You're all liars. The fact of the matter is, what really matters for us is the change in people's lives. It's not about the money. I mean, we love the money. Money can do a lot of good, but if you focus on the money, you're missing the whole point. You focus on changing lives, and the more lives you can change, the happier you will be. And happiness, you know, you heard the saying that he who dies with the most toys wins. Complete BS, right? Guy's still dead. The person who has the most happiness wins. And the most happiness comes from the greatest contribution. The more contribution you can make, and what greater contribution can you make than what you just saw with John and Jim up here? I mean, do you think the people who made those calls feel pretty good? They see that success going on, they say, yeah. I had a part in that. I did a little bit towards that, right? Feels good. Now, intervention is an interesting thing. Intervention is really only possible if you have intense connection with another person. I can go try to intervene with somebody on the sidewalk, and I'll probably get arrested. Okay? So I want you to know that the more connections you create between you and another person, the greater your ability to intervene with that person. You do something through social media or some other mechanism and you get a customer. That's one connection. You sit with them after they've had this really positive experience and you've been encouraging them, of course, to do it right, do it well, do it consistently, and they've got this outcome, and you sit with them and they become a distributor. That's a second connection. Customer, distributor. Customer's connection is pretty weak. You're a buyer. A buying connection in this world that's so crowded is a pretty weak connection. A seller is a distributor. That's a much stronger connection. Then you teach them how they might want to include some people in their business. Now they're a builder, another connection. And then you teach them how to lead an organization. Now they're a leader, another connection. As you build these connections, I tell you, people will maintain that behavioral modification. They will continue to be product advocates. They will continue to grow and develop other people, and they will be massively happy because you created the connections that gave you the credibility, and it all started with your authenticity. Now, I'm going to give you some bad news, which is really the purpose I'm here. Okay? I just wanted to give you that little framing to begin with. So, I want to talk about negative feedback. It's the key to growing faster. If you really want to grow fast, you need to embrace negative feedback. But you know what? we don't like negative feedback, do we? We don't like it. And we do recognition because positive feedback's pretty powerful. Positive feedback is an essential component to being, happy and continuing to engage. But the master's level course is the ability to be motivated to embrace negative feedback. Because negative feedback tells you where you need to change. Right? Positive feedback says, man, you did awesome. And you did, or you wouldn't have been getting that recognition. But you're not great yet. To become great, you've got to hear what you did wrong, what you did poorly, what you didn't do, or what you should have done. That comes from negative feedback. Now, interestingly enough, each one of us can literally become a heat-seeking missile if we're willing to embrace negative feedback. You know how a heat-seeking missile locks on the target, right? I don't know what I'm seeing. Are they seeing all four of those? Okay. It locks on the target, and then because of the variations of wind and all the different things that are going on, it gets off course. And it's the off-course aspect of the guidance system that brings it back on course, which it overshoots, and then another negative feedback, it overshoots, and through a series of overshooting, responding to the negative course correction behavior, it dials in, zeroes in, and hits the target. That's a heat-seeking missile. That's physics. But if we are not willing to embrace course correction, negative feedback, guess what the missile does? It just heads right off into space. Never hits the target. So when you begin this business, understand that you need to develop sensory acuity to a very high level. Inside of you, there is an internal guidance system. It's built into every human being. It's what's kept our ancestors alive, which is what got us to be able to be here. And that sensory acuity, the better you have it, the better you thrive. Now, sensory acuity is based on negative feedback. When you have it, it literally changes your ability to recognize signals emotionally, socially. In communication, you become sharper. you gain this ability to see patterns in what works and what doesn't work with people. You begin to see patterns in personalities and how you should respond. This is all a function of actually responding to negative feedback. You won't learn any of this from positive feedback. Now, if you see this in the context that I want you to leave with, you'll begin to see that negative feedback literally changes the way you perceive the world and the way you respond to it. Those of you who have been to the method, you know I talk about Weltanschauung, your worldview, your map of the world. How do you make that map more accurate? The more accurate your map, the more you navigate easily and correctly to your destination. Well, the best way to refine your map is to hear what people say when they say no to you. Okay? But the biggest challenge with most human beings, especially people your age, and when I grew up, your parents or grandparents told you this, right? Because when we grew up, we had to walk uphill both ways to school through waist-deep snow. I mean, we understood rejection. We understood the challenges of it. And really, honestly, that is not exactly true, but it's pretty true. But over the last 25 years, we've certainly coddled, at least in the Western world, we've coddled our children. We've been that helicopter parent, or we've been that parent that just goes through with a machete and cuts the path in front of the child. And so the child is just going on, yeah, I'm awesome, I'm so great, I'm amazing. Right? But guess what? The child is not amazing. The child is soft. And some of you are soft. Sad but true. That's the bad news. I said it. But see, here's the problem. Most people, meaning most people in this room too, respond to negative feedback reactively. They take it personally. Whoa, really? Me? No, my mother never said that about me. My dad said I was awesome. The teachers all gave me. In fact, our soccer team won every game. Well, at least we got a trophy every game. You see, when you are unwilling to embrace negative feedback, or you see it as some kind of personal attack on you, instead of seeing it the way I want you to see it, most people see it as personal. Oh, wow, I'm sorry. I didn't know. And then they go away and suck their thumb, or they get angry or something, right? And so the reality of it is you got to break out of that and start to see all negative feedback proactively. I mean, it doesn't mean that the people who are giving you the feedback are good people. Maybe they're slime balls, but the feedback is useful. Okay? The feedback is useful. Forget where it came from. Analyze the data. And don't get bogged down in, well, I don't like that guy, so I'm not going to listen to his data. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who he is or who she is. What matters is the data. Is the data accurate or not accurate? If you go personal, you won't even process whether it's accurate or not accurate. You'll be so busy either being aggrieved, a victim, or feeling sorry for yourself that you won't even be able to stop and think, is this even true? But when you step back from it and you look at the negative feedback, you can analyze and say, maybe this guy has a point. Maybe he doesn't. I'm going to analyze the data. right? When we analyze the data, we get into a growth cycle. We perpetually grow because there's always going to be people who are going to do you the favor of giving you negative feedback. They're going to bless your life with negative feedback. The barrier between great success and being average is really about whether or not you can embrace negative feedback or you choose to avoid it. I had a friend once, he only wanted to do things he was good at. That was it. I don't know when that happened because he was pretty good at a couple of things, so he must have been willing to be bad maybe when he was a child until he got good in that one or two things. But after that, nope, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. Didn't want to hear no. Didn't like the word no. Ran from the word no. And when you run from the word no, you put yourself in a position where you stunt your growth. You put yourself in a position where you simply cannot grow your skill set. I mean, when you're playing golf, do you get negative feedback? Anybody here a golfer? When I play golf, it's nothing but negative feedback. It's in real time. I can't say, that club, I'm telling you, that ball, if I only had a decent club, if I only had better ball, you better be careful with that, but the reality of it is change that metaphor, but I'm going to move down this path, and the reality of it is you can't blame the equipment in a game like that, but in human interactions, we tend to blame the other people all the time. Not our fault. And here again, fault's got nothing to do with it. It's just the feedback. We just want the feedback. When we're thinking about fault, where are we? Reactive or proactive? We're reactive. We're thinking about, how does this affect me? How am I going to look? What's my mama going to think about this? When we get dialed into this, we begin to see that as a leader, you are absolutely incapable of taking anybody through an obstacle that you have been avoiding. Now, you may try to do it, puff yourself up and act like you know what you're doing. But you know what? We live in a world of what? Authenticity. People will smell you out. If you don't really know how to navigate that situation because you've never navigated it, guess what they're going to say? I don't know. I just don't feel like she's got it. They won't maybe tell you that, but they just won't engage because you lost credibility when you tried to say that you could do something or they could do something, you hadn't done it. It doesn't mean you have to be an expert on everything before you can lead, but you have to be honest and say, hey, let's do this thing. We'll both learn together. Or we'll get our butts kicked together. Bottom line is, it's going to be fun. I remember when I started in the Wall Street world, they put us in what's called a bullpen. Anybody been in a bullpen before? And I don't mean on a cattle ranch. I mean, because don't go in a bullpen on a cattle ranch. But a bullpen in an office where this is back in the days when phone calls were okay. And you sit there with all these other young brokers making phone calls all day to strangers. You can imagine the abuse that you would get, right? But because you were with 8 or 10 or 15 guys that were also getting abused, it didn't sting so much and it didn't feel personal because everybody was getting it. I still remember when I called a guy and he just basically verbally ripped my head off. I mean, I don't know what happened to him that morning, but he was a mad guy. And he threatened me. I still remember it. It made quite an impact on me. He was going to call the governor of the state of Utah to complain about me. I thought, wow, I've really arrived. I'm listening to this and I'm trying to respond, and the guy sitting next to me in the bullpen says, what happened? And I said, this guy's calling the governor about me. He says, give me his number. And he called him. I still remember the line. Hi. I won't tell you his name. Hi. I understand you just told my partner that he was giving you telephone harassment. Oh, that wasn't telephone harassment. This is telephone harassment. And they hung up on the guy. So I'm sitting there thinking to myself, wow, it's all right, baby, it's not me. You know, we can have some fun with this, but there's a reality check that you got to get through it. You got to go through the pain. You got to go through the suffering. You got to go through it before you can lead people through it. And sometimes you go through it with them. You guys have all been growing so fast that it's okay to grow with people through the obstacles. But you've got to be enough of a leader to say, let's go do it. I don't know what's going to happen either, but we're going to learn. We're going to learn, right? And when you do that, they're going to say, man, I love this guy. I love how honest she's been with me. Yeah, let's go do it. And then it just grows from there. Whenever you see quotes like this with no name, I don't know why they put quotation marks there, but this is true. I've seen it in my years. I mean, I've been selling since I was 19 years old. So, I mean, I've seen this play out a million times. People who understand how to handle negative feedback the best are always the most successful. And the bigger your profit margin is, it is because you've figured out how to learn from negative feedback. You've learned how to go in the refiner process until you've refined your way up to where, quite honestly, it's hard to say no to you. And you can all get there, where it's just plain hard to say no to you. I was with a guy not long ago. I didn't need the product he was selling, didn't want the product he was selling. My wife was with me. And of course, she's a much better buyer than me. As a salesman, I'm a really easy sell. I want to help you. You know, I want to buy from you. And I didn't need the product. I didn't want the product. My wife knew that. But the sales pitch was so good. He was so smooth. It was like, yeah, give me more, baby. You're so good. I love. It's a clinic, baby. Come on, keep her going. My wife's saying, stop it, kicking me in the foot, right? The reality is that you can become exceptional if you learn how to deal with negative feedback in a proactive, positive, constructive way. It's premium intelligence. Every no, free insight to what people really think. Someone says no to you, you don't go whimper away. You say, well, that's an interesting response. I respect it. Would you mind elaborating a little bit about why you don't think this would be good for you? Why not? You got nothing to lose. I already told you no. Why not learn? Why no? Oh, it's just because I don't like people like you. Fair enough. Okay. Any other reasons? Right? But the idea is to be willing to embrace it. Every rejection, you're getting a window into what their concerns are. Every objection, your approach becomes more refined. Every setback, that internal GPS is dialing in. Every criticism literally changes the way you improve. All of that stuff is a function of this loop that I want you to burn into your minds. I first saw this loop with Ray Dalio. Ray, very bright guy, the CEO, founder of Bridgewater. It's a big hedge fund. Ray's worth like $50, $60 billion conservatively. Had a life crisis a few years ago, nearly died. Because of this concept, he actually is still alive today. But he decided he was going to pretty much devote his remaining years to teaching people. And so he's written all these books, most of which he gives away free, about how to invest, world calamities, how to deal with them, and things like this. But the most powerful thing I've ever learned from Ray is this feedback loop. Now, I've changed all the words on it, but I got to give credit to where I got the idea. Now, I want you to look at this loop, and I want you to see down at the very bottom, qualify, invite, present, commit. Those 4 skills will take you to the top of any business anywhere in the world. Our business, IBM, Hewlett-Packard, Apple, it doesn't matter. If you learn how to qualify, invite, present, and commit, if those 4 skill sets become honed and refined in your portfolio, you become literally unstoppable. You can do anything, anywhere. Give you a roll of quarters, parachute you into Karachi, you'll come back a millionaire. Because you know those 4 skills. Well, how do you develop those 4 skills? Number 1, you got to get started, okay? You got to get started with each one of the 4. So the QIPC, as you see here, this idea is to actually create this beginning. You got to try it, which means you're going to what? You're going to fail. Now, here's the thing. This is Darwinian. This is evolutionary biology. If you fail, I'm going to get down here so I can point out some things. If you fail, i.e. a negative outcome, you got a choice right there. What's the choice? Learn or die. That's the choice. Your ancestors all learned. That's why you're here. I'm here. Ancestors learned. If they died, you wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. So we see the negative outcome. It happens, and we diagnose the problem. What happened? How can you diagnose the problem if you haven't explored the negative outcome? How can you possibly diagnose what happened if you don't say, that's interesting. Tell me why you feel that way. I see. Anything else troubling you about this? Was there anything I said that, right? I mean, the whole idea is you're willing to engage. You're not hearing that no and scurrying away, try to find a private place you can lick your wounds, right? You want to continue to engage, because the moment the person said no to you, in that moment, guess what they did? They opened you up to a master's class in refinement. The person who said yes to you, that's wonderful, but you didn't learn much. It's the person who said no to you that's willing to grow you. Now, if you engage them. Now, once you've examined this thing, you can diagnose what actually happened. Because it won't always be the thing they tell you first. Oh, I just don't. Anything else? Eventually, you'll get to a place. In fact, I use this all the time. When people would tell me no, I'd say, I understand that. You're saying that if I were to resolve that concern, you'd be ready to go. Is that right? Oh, no. Because they always lie to you first, right? Back in the old days, when I was in this, we said buyers are liars, right? Well, not always the case, but the truth is they won't tell you the real objection usually at first. So you got to dig a little bit. And because you're digging for feedback, not trying to manipulate them into a sell, although you'll get sells this way, but your real purpose is to learn. And when you say, then what is it? What beyond this thing is troubling you? And then you end up finding out something, and now you can make an adjustment. Well, I shouldn't have said that. I could have done it different. In other words, you actually determine the adjustment that you need to make. Now you've got the adjustment. Now what do you have to do? You got to practice the adjustment, because you're not going to be really perfect at it right off the cuff, are you? You got to practice it. And practice it means what? negative feedback, right? And you're going to go through that, and you're going to do that until you actually find you've become really quite good at that adjustment, that new application of behavior that brings more people into the business with you. Now you're going to see this acceleration of growth. In other words, we don't show this probably as much as we should with this graphic, but I guarantee you that the angle of your growth coming into the feedback loop is lower than the angle of growth coming out of the feedback loop. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right? So maybe you come in, depending on where you are. Maybe you're a brand new newbie. Maybe you're somebody who's super already experienced in sales. And whatever angle of attack you come in, whatever growth rate, 10%, 15% growth rate, 20% growth rate, when you get through the feedback loop, you'll come out at a 25% or a 30% growth rate because of the adjustments, because of the learning, because of the course correction, because of the negative feedback that you actually took in and processed and developed. Now, something interesting happens now. As you do this, you become evolutionary in your adaptation to everything. Everything. Not just the business, but everything. Interactions in your family, interactions in society, interactions with everybody that you're engaging with. You become evolutionary because you now understand the process for growth and development. And as you do that, every time you go through the feedback loop takes less time to go through. In other words, you're getting smarter faster. You wonder why some people have these outrageous outcomes? If you go back and look at them before they were famous, you see massive, massive evolutionary changes in how they do things. Every single time. They look like an overnight success. You dig deeper, you find out there was 10 years, 15 years, 20 years where they labored in obscurity before anything started working. And when it started working, it was like, wow, guy's so lucky. And this keeps going like this. And not only does it get smaller, in other words, shorter, you go through the loop faster, you embrace it quicker, boom, 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 and you're out again. But as I said at the beginning, the angle of growth is stronger after the feedback loop. Nothing really feels better than helping somebody else succeed in life. But if there's anything close, it's this. It's growing yourself. When you grow yourself, you literally create inside of yourself this sense of, I'm doing something right here. I'm doing something good here. My life matters. I'm growing. I'm getting better. My business partner, Kurt Hedges, I love this guy. I remember him telling me, I don't know, it's been 20 years, maybe 15 years ago. He said, Stewart, he had this posse of financial people, literally, around the company. And they literally would work for practically nothing if they could work with him. And I says, how do you do it? And he says, people are more hungry for growth than they are for money. And I said, wow, I totally believe that. That resonates with me. Understand that the money is important, and at the superficial level, people will all say, yeah, I want the money. I don't care about the growth, just give me the money. But when they get in, what they really want to know is, am I getting better? Am I growing? Am I getting stronger? That's what they really want to know. If you can help them do that, then magic starts to happen. Now, as you get this internal guidance system going on, here's the key steps. Number one, be willing to fail. It's okay. Failure is the first step in success. Every time. Every time. I love Rav and Karen. They're a couple of my dearest friends. They're just awesome human beings. But what I'm most proud of them for is they haven't gone crazy on me. They're making crazy money, but they haven't gone crazy. And I think they haven't gone crazy partly because they've got good parents who've taught them well, but also because they spent 10 years failing. It wasn't an overnight success. They didn't win the lottery. It looks like it to the outsider, but for someone like me who watched this process, I know they paid this really bitter price. It grounded them, right? And that's what makes them able to handle this crazy success. So be willing to accept that initial inadequacy as you engage this process. You're going to be engaging the negative feedback loop, and you're going to be seeing it from the context, how good am I at qualifying people? How good am I at inviting people? How good am I at presenting to people? How good am I at committing people? Because none of the other stuff matters if you can't commit them, right? Now, when we look at that, you want to set a quota for feedback. I know this sounds adolescent, but if you will set a quota of getting 10 pieces of negative feedback a day, it'll make it more clinical for you. It'll stop being as personal to you. You know, I really hate the way you do your hair. Thank you very much. That's number one. Right? What the hey? You're just going for 10 pieces of negative feedback, right? Don't like my clothes? Oh, got it there, number two. We're good. You can have that stuff be personal or you can be clinical about it. And if you choose to be clinical about it, you're going to see it differently. You're going to keep a learning journal. What did you learn about that interaction? When you got finished with that presentation, sit down. Let the prospect go. It's okay. Sit down and say, okay, what do we learn here? Let's distill it. Writing something down clarifies it in your head. And it also creates some kind of thing to the memory. Studies have been done on this ad infinitum. You can give a person a smartphone or a computer and they can type it out. They don't remember it as well as when they write it out. That's why I carry a book, so I can write the things I need to remember, because for some reason, that process of writing it creates a more deep impression on the memory and helps you create clarity around what you learned. Thank people for being honest with you. When someone gives you a bad outcome, even if they're rude, even if they're disrespectful, they taught you something. Be grateful. Express your gratitude to them. We find so often that, especially when we start being successful, we think we're something special. Oh yeah, put that right over there. Yeah, that over there. And don't come close to me. I'm blessed to have a plane. And a couple of great pilots. And one of my pilots told me, in fact, we got off the plane here in Opaloka, and I said, I just really appreciate, you getting me here, because this trip was a surprise. They hadn't planned on it. It wasn't scheduled, and I said, I just really appreciate you doing this for me, because they had other plans. One of them was in Europe and came back to make the trip, and he says, you know, Stewart, I just love your family. You can imagine how that interaction happens, right? Well, another pilot, one of my pilots, told me that same thing at a different time. And he says, what we love about you and your family is you actually clean up the plane after we arrive. We don't have to go through and pick up all the trash. You guys are all back picking up the trash. You shouldn't do that. We should do that. I said, no, we should pick up after ourselves. Don't tell my kids this stuff. They need to know, right? They pick up after themselves. He said, my last owner, meaning the guy he flew for, we were instructed not to look him in the eye. There's a guy who's lost track of who he is, right? And so you see that you want to always be the humble person, no matter what the outcome is. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You gave me some really valuable information. And finally, this turns on that internal guidance system. Literally, you begin to refine yourself without even making adjustments. Literally, your internal guidance system makes them for you if you let it. This is the key, though. Famous psychiatrist, Thomas, how do you say that? Dallin? He's Hungarian. How do you say that? Sass. Thomas Sass. What do you think of that? Notice how a child learns to walk? Gets up, falls, gets up, falls, gets up, falls, gets up, falls. Children learn languages faster because they're able to make mistakes more willingly. No problem, right? We get old and we get self-important, and now we got a problem. Because we now make a mistake, it's like a personal aggrievement. It's a personal loss of self-esteem. You got to get over that. If you want to be great, you've got to park your self-esteem at the door. Your self-esteem is a function, literally, of your self-control. The more you control yourself, the more respect you'll have for yourself, the more esteem you'll have for yourself. So it doesn't really matter what anybody else says to you. It isn't going to change you. The only thing that will change you is you choosing to grow. Now, if you want this presentation, here's the QR code. You can get it. Why are you laughing? It's only $49.99. Just kidding. Just kidding. Now, in conclusion, we need to grow North America. We need to grow it. Trent was right that we are ahead of the game. We are first movers. Every one of these other companies are trying to figure out what we're doing. They're trying to copy us. They don't get it. They're making all kinds of crazy adjustments because they've got CEOs that don't understand this business. And I may not be so current as I used to be in understanding this business, but I do know that this is a people-building business. And you've got to have leaders to build people. And to have leaders, you've got to pay them, right? So we're always going to have you be the forefront of who we are and where we're going. But in order for us to seize this first mover advantage, to take advantage of having that biggest footprint, you've got to grow organizationally, not just through customers. We love these customers, but you won't keep as many customers as you will if you help them become distributors, if you help them become builders and leaders. If you bring them into the business with you, they'll be customers for life. If you just try to rotate new social media customers, you'll be on a treadmill for the rest of your life. But if you build an organizational structure, if you will master, qualify, invite, present, commit through the exercise of embracing negative feedback, you'll become a dynamic leader who literally has hundreds of thousands of people and hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue in your organization. North America, well, the United States and that 51st state. Just kidding, guys, just kidding. Don't anybody get upset at me. I'll take it personally. See, here's the deal. If you haven't been noticing, the United States is playing for keeps right now. You may not like it, but it is what it is. Which means every country on the planet wants to sell into this market. And what Trent told you earlier, they are starting to be able to. But the reverse is also true. You can sell into their markets. You can build Europe. You can build Asia. You can do all those things, but you've got to establish organizational skills before you can do it. And you can do that right here in a country of 350 million people, 75 to 80% of which need the product today. Thank you very much.